And we are live. Welcome, guys. This is Lewis and Jim with Recovery Media podcast live for Facebook. We're also on YouTube, and we want to let everybody know that you're joining us here tonight. And we'll wait to get things rolling and some people to sign on. But please leave us a heart. Please share this with your friends and loved ones on Facebook. And we really want to try to get as many people involved in these conversations that Jim and I are doing. So today we're specifically going to be talking about an author and professor by the name of Carl L Hart. And one of the discussions that he has in his ideology is about people using substances recreationally, right? And that things like heroin and cocaine and other substances aren't necessarily bad. Jim, what's your take on what this guy's about? You've listened to him, time and time again, and I'm curious to see what your take on what he's trying to get forth to the public.
Well, the thing, so he uses heroin on a regular basis. So for the last, I think, 5 years or so. And his belief, and not only belief, but message is that it's okay. And that 75 or 70 to 80% of the world or of the country that use drugs do not get addicted. But he doesn't talk about if those percentages are right, the other 25 people that are addicted, and how many of that percentage of the people that die. So our issue is that it's ridiculous. It's irresponsible. It's crazy. He is, and I don't know out there, all of you who have read him or listened to him. He's on, I think, CNN. He's on Trevor Noah, the Daily Show.
He was front page news, right?
I don't know if he was front page news, but he was CNN, the New York Times, the
big platforms.
So he's very well spoken, and he's not, and he's not ranting and raving and all of that. But I just I don't get it. I don't get it on just on the basic level of someone that has a platform. He written a book. He did a TED Talk. We talked about the other TED Talk guy, and even like in the beginning of the Trevor Noah interview with him, Lewis listened to the first 5 minutes. He's like, oh, I agree with a lot of what he said, because it was talking about vilifying addicts and all that. But then the overall message again is it's okay to use heroin because heroin makes you feel good. And then you didn't even listen to this part. Towards the end of the interview, he starts using the Constitution to back his point.
Yeah.
The pursuit of what I'm going to sound not American now, but the pursuit of blah, 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 and happiness.
Yeah, he can.
Because when I use heroin, I'm happy. Yeah, when I go to parties, you use cocaine and heroin, you should be able to, because it makes you feel happy and it's a good party. What are you, a fucking idiot?
Yeah, throughout the whole episode, he continues to contradict himself because he says a lot of things that I would agree with, not if the basis was that you're capable of using these substances. One of the things that he says is that he essentially vets his drug dealers. That he's capable of knowing what's in his substances, as if everybody should have a tester and vet their drug dealer to get the appropriate drugs. Yeah. But regardless, people were overdosing from heroin from the beginning of time. And that's why originally it came out as an over-the-counter medication. I think that his history of his take on history of opioids is completely wrong, basing it off of that they made these drugs illegal based off racism. This was based off scientific facts and statistics and things that were happening to people that, were just unhealthy, whether it was people getting addicted or unmanageable lives or, all of the things. And from point of views of addicts and alcoholics, it's ridiculous for this guy to have the platform that he has and be able to, spew this nonsense to our youth and to, adults.
To his own kids. He's got kids.
Yeah.
And I'd like to replay it in terms of how he addresses that. because he talks about informing. Informing. I want to inform the public because the public has been what's that word? Misinformed.
Yeah.
Like he's got the answer. He's got the secret. Well, he's got his answer to promote his book and to promote, his point of view. And again, it's like the other guy. Like you're openly giving permission or promoting drug use for it being okay. Well, what if you are an addict? What if you become an addict and you didn't know you are? So it's like, so with his kids, like, they know their dad uses heroin. So like, all right, well, I'm going to do heroin. And then they get addicted and God forbid they die. And he talks about that. He talks about that with when he references his kids, and he's like, well, I want to inform my kids. I want my kids to be informed, like it's the freedom to, it's almost like
suggesting that they use drugs.
Well, yeah, but also just like the whole basis of freedom to be able to do what you want to do because it's America. And I don't want to go off or even, but they have these recent Diet Coke commercials where it's that point. They actually use there's a line in there like Diet Coke for those people who want to do what they want to do, and or something like that, and then they guzzle a Diet Coke. And I'm like, so health conscious and stuff. Like I don't even let my kids drink soda, even though they're only 4.5. But don't get me wrong, people. I'm not going to go off and start preaching, but there's like poison in Diet Coke. It's like not, soda is not good for you, and especially diet stuff. That's if he was promoting that, okay, that's unhealthy, but it's not going to kill you. The way that heroin is going to kill you.
So for everybody that's tuning in, Jim and I do an episode about an author and professor by the name of Carl L Hart, and he basically uses heroin on a daily basis for the past 5 years.
Well, I'm not on a daily basis, but
okay.
He started using it 5 years ago. I don't know like what his specific time frame was.
So he uses it
recreationally,
yeah.
But again,
promotes
the fact that it's okay. You should be able to, and again, the message of, and how like the message that has been given to us about drug use being bad is wrong.
Yeah.
And we're being misinformed.
Everything our parents tell us, and
he's going to set us right.
Yeah.
He's going to set us straight.
The other thing that he talks about is using drugs, recreationally and to be social, and for majority of addicts and alcoholics, that's where it starts, right? You have that first drink and you're able to go up to the girl that you didn't have the courage to speak to, or you're able to party and fit in with a group of friends, or, if it's drugs, it's, the ability for it to dumb everything down and not feel, right? So that goes against everything that we really know about substances, because that's like saying, well, use drugs to be social without finding the your natural ability to socialize.
Well, yeah, like what our experience is drinking and drugging at such an early age, it's difficult to grow up and be a child and a teenager all by yourself with all that goes on in your mind and emotions and fears and insecurities. Then if you learn how to interact and communicate and to socialize from alcohol and drugs, then like for me, like that's why alcohol was such an amazing gift for me at 15, because I was terrified to talk to girls. I was self-conscious about how I looked, how I sounded. I wanted to, be cool and fit in with the guys, and it worked because I came out of myself and I didn't have any inhibitions, and then, but then it took over. And then, you know, you wouldn't want to talk to me. I wasn't social the next morning. I wasn't even social before I started drinking the next time, because I needed that alcohol and whatever else, you know, I got into along the way to socialize.
Yeah, of course. So guys, if you're just tuning in, please give us a heart, a like, and make sure you share this on your Facebook platform with your family and friends. We're looking to have as many people involved in these conversations. Jim and I are going to continue to try to do these conversations weekly, get everybody involved. Nothing's, yeah, but I couldn't find them. Nothing's off limits. You know, you guys, there's no stupid questions. Obviously, we have a ton of resources. If anybody ever needs any help with detox or residential treatment for substance abuse and mental health, Jim does some coaching and knows some absolutely great coaches across the United States. If anybody's looking for coach-specific circumstances, you know, we're just here to help as best as we can. And that's what we're about. Recovery Media Podcast was started to be a platform for all people struggling. It wasn't just for substance abuse and mental health. And, you know, we're really excited about it. So we're looking to continue to get the word out, and you guys can help us with that. So did you find the comments?
No.
Okay.
I don't know
I'm
how
going to look.
We got it the first
Jim
time.
will continue to talk about this bozo.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about this the last time with the other guy that was talking about, you know, the addiction and connection, and that, like, if you only had connection, you would not become addicted. And even, like, you know, again, that openly promoting, you know, alcohol and drugs. And the message for that is, you know, being scary for me, for us, even like as parents, like I said that the last time. So now we have this guy saying, you know, you should be able to use drugs, and that, you know, you won't become addicted because most people don't. Well, then, okay, I'm going to start, you know, I'll believe this guy if he has an influence on me. Or he says something that I want to hear, to try something out. And, you know, we know, you know, the opiate addiction epidemic. You know, the one story that I remember or think of right now is one of these young kids. He was 20 years old, and he was in the treatment center that I used to work. And he was fighting heroin addiction, and you know, would get clean, would relapse, would get clean, relapse. And then the story was he went out, used, he came home, was in bed. His father heard him come home. He was, you know, relieved that he was home. And for some reason, this kid wanted more. He got up out of bed, went to a local ATM, got more drugs, came home, and then was dead. And that's all it takes. People go to parties, or whether it's a high school party or college party, and they try something for the first time. And that's the other thing in terms of addiction. Some people can, you know, experiment and try things and not get addicted. Some people, you know, use something for the first time and die, or use something for the first time and then they're addicted. You know, Lewis and we're trying to figure out the where we can find comments and like interact with all of you like we did the first time. For some reason we can't, but I want Lewis to share. Oh, good.
I found everybody. We see Ron on. Welcome, Ron. Thanks for always being here.
Yeah.
My Aunt Donna. Hey, Aunt Donna, how are you? So yeah, we're live with you guys, and we got the comments right here. So feel free to drop a comment, if you'd like. And yeah, would you want to hear from me?
Well, what I was just saying in terms of, and share your experience today in terms of where you are and how it affected you and what you think about it.
Yeah. So today I had to unfortunately go to a wake, a funeral ceremony for a 23-year-old male. His name was Justin, and we had to put him to rest today, and it was an emotional experience. It was my first. I've been to, I don't even know, hundreds of wakes with people that have lost their lives to drug overdoses specifically, and this was the first one since the pandemic hit and things have been closed. And I think maybe because I have a daughter of my own, this one hit a little bit differently, and I was a disaster. I was a mess, and I was watching, mom, and the look on her face, and just constant tears, and the father's trying to console her. And I could tell in his eyes, he knows that there's nothing he can do to fix this. And, both from mother and father circumstances, to feel like that as a parent is a desperate place to be. I knew we had this episode tonight, and I was just, it was on my mind, and I almost wanted to come on here and be rageful, right? And be upset and really bash this guy, and then I listened to a little bit before we put the episode on, and what was just crazy to me is how much it's contradicted in what he's saying. A lot of his statistics are wrong. And, it's like saying in relation to the pandemic that, so many people died, but so many people didn't. And that's just wrong. That's a terrible perspective for a professor and an author, somebody that has platforms to teach people about what's going on about, substance abuse and mental health.
Yeah, I would want him as a father. Like he references, well, I'm a father, and then he talks about in reference to his children, well, I want to be able to inform them. Well, or if something happens, like meaning like if his kids end up using drugs or get addicted to drugs, well, inform them
of what could happen.
Yeah, like not like promote it. Like you're actually not only telling the world or anybody that would listen to you, you're actually giving the message in your own home. Like figure out another way of like the freedom, to promote the freedom of speech or the freedom to do what you want to do, and get the information, yes, about drug use and all that. And yes, not everybody gets addicted. Like, and people that I used to drink with when I was 15 or did cocaine with when I was, whatever, along those, between 15 and 26. Along the way, some of them, got married, had kids, got a real job, was successful. That's his other thing. I wasn't. I didn't. And what makes us different? Well, that's because I'm an alcoholic and they weren't, or they figured something else out. But that was his other thing, his other message to prove his stance is that, well, if someone is a productive member of society and they're paying their bills and they're showing up for work, meaning, probably inferring about himself, then he doesn't have a problem. Well, there's plenty of people that look like they don't have a problem until they look like they have a problem because they get further into their addiction. Yeah. So I'll just say it again, like I said the last time when we talked about the other TED Talk guy, is to openly and like unabashedly promote something so dangerous, so self-destructive, so deadly, it pisses me off. And it's irresponsible. It's just irresponsible. It's like we talk about in recovery, that if we can only help one person, then that's enough. Then we've made a difference. Well, what if this guy in his decision to promote what he's promoting opens the door to give someone, kill somebody, and they die. So that one person dies, and then 99 other people don't because of his message. Is it a good message? Is it a positive message? Is it a message that he wants his legacy to be in his fucking life?
Yeah. And why don't you tell everybody that's just tuning in? We got Jana, hey Jana, love you a lot, guys. Jana Woodbury, she's in the comments. Great resource for people struggling with substance abuse and alcoholism for the individual. Jana.
Okay.
And for the family. Nikki boy, what's going on? Your wife asked the question. Tyler, we'll get to that question in a moment. Jim, just inform everybody what we're talking about for the people.
Yeah, so for anybody that just joined us, we are talking about this professor, whether it was 6 months ago or whatever it was, came out that he's an Ivy League, I think it is, professor, tenured, very well spoken. He's written a book. He's done a TED Talk. He's been on CNN. The New York Times has done an article on him. Trevor Noah, The Daily Show, has interviewed him, and he's promoting drug use. And he openly uses heroin, and he's used other drugs too, and says that, I don't think he ever says, well, look at me, I am a productive member of society, but that's one of his main points. You're not addicted, and it's not a problem if you pay your bills and you go and you show up to work. You should be able to use drugs if you want to use drugs, because people that use drugs, most people don't get addicted and have a problem.
Yep.
So we are not holding back in how we feel about that.
And guys, if you just signed in, drop a like, comment, and make sure you share this with your friends and family so we could have as many people involved.
Why don't you actually even answer my wife? Thank you, Kyla. So
you want to read it out?
So my wife, Kyla Grant, asks, do you agree that drugs should be decriminalized? Do you think that would help the issue of addiction at all?
So I personally do not think that decriminalizing all drugs would help the issue. I think that when we decriminalize substances, what most people don't take into consideration is how is that going to be managed, right? What age are they supposed to be able to use it at? How does it affect the brain? What is there the ability to actually get physically or mentally addicted to a substance? So a lot of those things aren't taken into consideration. I think that a lot of substances that are already, that you can get prescriptions for should be taken off the market. That we haven't really done enough research on what the effects on individuals and individuals in society would be. People talk about safe injection sites and all these things, and I get the idea. I get the concept of it, and I'm all about promoting safer use in those circumstances, because I think it would lessen the amount of overdoses and lessen the amount of HIV that's spread between IV users specifically, and hepatitis C. But it's not going to fix the issue. The issue of addiction is at the core of you, right? In my opinion, it has absolutely nothing to really do with the substances themselves. So we use something to either feel or not to feel. And once we make the connection in our brain that it works, just like anything in life, you're going to continue you're going to build a habit. You're going to create a habit. And what happened to, somebody like myself is at a young age, I used marijuana, and whatever was going on in my world, right? As a kid, things that may have been traumatic or a certain circumstance like that, all slowly faded away. And my brain made the connection because I wasn't capable as a human being at that moment to say to myself, wow, how can this affect my responsibility? And how could this affect my life? And play the tape further enough down the road to realize how bad my situation would get. I just made the connection in my brain that it worked. And then slowly but surely, my life continued in that direction, and it was another substance. And when I took that substance, it did what it was supposed to do and quieted any thoughts of struggling and fears and pain and anger, any of that. All of that went away. And then eventually what had happened is I started using, heroin and cocaine. And once you're at that point, there's no looking back. You become physically addicted, and you can't just stop those substances, right? You need to appropriately come off with a detox and a residential treatment and continued outpatient and continue to work, in an AA program with a sponsor and all that, so it's just, it's the concept that this man speaks about is extremely dangerous in the platforms that he has, because it just could ruin people's lives. Going to the wake today, I was driving there, and you're thinking about all of the things that you could say to a parent that just lost their son. And for everyone that's just tuning in, I had mentioned earlier, we lost an absolutely phenomenal young man. He was 23 years old to a drug overdose, and I had to go to the ceremony today, and then follow to the cemetery to put him to rest. And when I was driving there, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to these parents, and there's nothing that you can possibly say. And that's what I'd like to say to this man in person is, well, if your advice was to kill somebody, what would you say to their family? What would you say to their parents? And I'd like to hear how he answers that question. Maybe one day I'll get a shot, but.
Yeah, and we're not even saying that, and I think Lewis will agree, and even taking it a step further in terms of us being parents and what our message will be to our children, is that, well, we became addicted to whatever we picked up, so that's what's going to happen to everybody. Our problem with this professor, this man's, I'll just keep saying it, message, is that it's reckless. It's again, it's like pick anything else, even if it's unhealthy, to promote. Well, I guess that's probably not going to be popular to sell books and to be able to get on TED Talks. And that's another thing. It's like, dude, we should. Why the hell aren't we doing TED Talks? We have a hell of a lot better message.
Yeah.
So it's and again, like here, let me, because I said in my post on Facebook, in terms of letting everybody know about this, that we're not going to hold back, and so I'm allowing myself not to hold back, and I'm starting to think, what if our kids end up in this guy's class? Not that he's standing up in front of the class, promoting this subject, but I'm
gonna read his book or
yeah,
see it on whatever platform it's on. Yeah.
No,
it's so
then it's like then I start thinking about parenthood and how, here I am, a coach, here I am, someone that promotes love and connection, vulnerability, and if someone in my children's lives that crosses paths with them, that openly promotes something deadly, that it's okay for them to do, I might not be loving them to tell them what I think about their message. So
we have another question from your wife. She's on fire today.
Oh, nice.
So Kyla said, let me ask the flip question, Lewis. For you personally, do you think incarceration helped get you on the path to recovery? So my direct answer to that is no, it didn't. In some circumstances, it was the only way to stop me. It was the only thing that was going to put some degrees of separation between me and the substances. Ultimately, all of those arrests came from my actions. So did I deserve that? Did I deserve to be incarcerated? I would say yes. I think where it gets convoluted is in the circumstances of the process to find treatment through the courts and the criminal justice system. And that's where we lack. And so, for instance, I'll give you an example. A 20-year-old Lewis gets arrested for heroin possession, right? If my parents can't bail me out and I could find treatment, there's very limited resources for social workers and for treatment placement in the jails and in the county jails and the state institutions. I think that a lot of times most users are going to be, even if they're drug dealers, they're at kind of a lower level, or they're just copying and supplying their friends so they could use for free. So, for my circumstance, incarceration never necessarily helped me. But in this, if it was a family dealing with a situation where they felt that they needed to call the police on their loved one to show consequences so that they can get an immediate stop to the substance abuse, I believe that's okay.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was thinking about, was consequences. And we was a big message in outreach when I was a counselor and Lewis was a resident: consequences to your actions. And that as now, again, as a parent, that I believe that, that there needs to be consequences to your actions, because just like we said before, not everybody that picks up a drug or an alcohol is going to get addicted. Not everybody that does heroin or cocaine or crack is going to die. Not everybody that drives drunk is gonna kill somebody. Not everybody that goes to treatment is gonna get sober. But even using that, and I hope I'm making sense, and I want to tie this up in a bow, is that even you continuing to go to detox and treatment center after detox was that consequence. And then because you continued to go to someplace, it finally clicked. The same thing with consequences. Somebody gets arrested and goes to jail for the first time. That's, for a lot of people, holy shit, that's my wake up call. Somebody that goes 2, 3, 4, gets incarcerated, you went to 40 treatment centers, detoxes. Somebody goes to jail 40 times. Maybe on that 40th time, they get the message and they change, they stop. For me, if there isn't any consequences, then there's just the randomness of somebody, for me on a lower, lesser scale, that I was living at home at the time all through my addiction. And my mother talked some stuff and confronted me and all this. And I was like, I heard her, but it didn't change me. It didn't stop me. Maybe my own experience that last morning of looking at myself in the mirror and being disgusted from my three-day binge, had something to do with it. But her consequence was, you're going to go to AA and stop drinking, or you're going to be out of the house. She never said that before. And that got me. The amount of times that you give the message to the families that you work with about the enabling parents that they need to change their behaviors because their kids are walking all over them and they're never going to learn. The one thing that I remember distinctly from outreach when I'm talking to the parents was they didn't have any structure or discipline or consequences to their children, or that it was lost, was a big part of what fueled their kids to keep going down the path that they did. So good question, baby. Thank you.
Yeah, she's on fire tonight. So Ron said, what were both of your turning points towards recovery? So for me, I had a ton of turning points, what some people would call rock bottoms, right? My last rock bottom, I was shooting cocaine down in South Florida, and I had overdosed, which is something that's extremely hard to do. And I had a seizure, popped my shoulder out of the socket, and I was hospitalized. But it wasn't that specifically. For me, it was the 39 times prior that I had tried to get this. And what I grew sick and tired of was continuing to gain and lose. I would acquire 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and I would gain some things back, relationships, maybe a little job, things in my life that are meaningful, and I would lose them all in the flick of a switch. So I was tired of that. I think that what was different about this time is that I was down in South Florida getting sober, and I didn't have the safety net of family to fall back on. And that was, believe it or not, real helpful for me, because I had to make the decision to make every little step forward for myself. I didn't have anybody that was going to, dig me out of this situation, or, you know, pay my car insurance, or, you know, help with rent. I had to figure that on my own. And it was just a light switch that it went off. And I said to and I'll never forget, and I'll tell everybody a little story. It's something very small that really got me to the first meeting when I got out of treatment this last time and was in sober living. I was on my cracked iPhone 4 that my older brother had sent me. And I had to scroll like on the side of the phone because it was all glass shards. And I was on Facebook, and I scrolled past a friend of mine that had just taken the bar exam and passed it. And, you know, and now, you know, continues to be an attorney today. And it hit me in my soul. And I was like, what have I been doing for the last 10, 15 years where I have nothing to show for it? No work history, no education. There was no journey that the journey that I had paved was just filled with substance abuse and jails and institutions and overdoses and homelessness. It wasn't anything that I could put on my resume, and it was a pretty scary feeling. And that alone was enough to get me to my first meeting. And from there, you know, I raised my hand and I said, you know, I'm Lewis. I've tried this, you know, 39 times prior, and you know, I need a sponsor today. I need to start working the steps, and I need to do something that I've never done before. And from so to answer your question directly, Ron, it's hard to look at that and answer it with one individual thing, because you need to understand my journey to really understand where I got to that crucial moment of deciding. And a lot of times, you know, I mentioned to families, Jim, you had mentioned, you know, 40 times trying this. That can be, and I'm trying to help these people, right? So like, oh, you've been to treatment 40 times. That's kind of like a turnoff, in my opinion. I make sure that I follow it up with, you know, that shouldn't define my story. What should define it, that I kept trying. So if you're out there and you're struggling, or you have a family member that's struggling, like, the whole point is to keep pushing them in the direction of getting help. You know, doesn't matter how many times, as long as you keep trying. If the circumstance was, God forbid, like this mother that lost her, that had to bury her son today, you know, I said to her, like, I watched you continue to try. It was she was so amazing. Each time we would get to a point and he would get help. And then, you know, eventually he would unfortunately relapse, and we would start over. And she was just amazing, you know, and it was never like, is this going to work, or should we try this again? What other option do we have? You know, we're burying 80,000 people a year due to overdoses specifically. That's not even counting the drunk drive crashes and people that have lost their lives to just specifically, you know, benzodiazepines or alcohol and all the other things. That's just opioid overdoses.
Yeah, man,
it's a shame.
Yeah. So before I answer that question, Ron, and yes, like Lewis said before, thanks for always being here and contributing. So what I wanted to say with Lewis is that, yes, we talk about this in AA, is in terms of like, don't compare to people's stories, compare to their feelings. And because everyone's got their own story, everyone's got, you know, for me, it was the first time I ever went to AA. I didn't want to be there. I was in denial, but I heard something that I needed, you know, that I could relate to, and it got me to go to my second meeting. And then I've been going ever since and stayed sober ever since. But what the thing that I latched onto with what Lewis said was that whether it takes you one time to get into recovery and stop, or 40 times, there is some sort of similarity or some sort of common denominator of what you do that works to stay sober and to continue to stay sober. Like this kid, he was clean and sober at one point in his life because he was doing what he needed to do. But for some reason, he stopped doing what he needed to do to stay clean and sober and started using again. So it's the same thing. And we talk about this all the time, even though our main message is to support addiction or address addiction. Is like, if you have depression or anxiety or you're an overeater or whatever, that there is a solution. but the only way that you continue to live in the solution is continue to do the work. So it's like me now. No one made any comments of how much weight that I've lost and how good I look since the last live, but that's okay. But again, every time I put on weight, it's because I stopped doing what I did, before that, or do certain things that go against, the result that I want. So I hope I tied that in.
My Aunt Donna had made a comment. I didn't see the question mark. Why does Trevor Noah and media even promote people like him?
Well,
the amount of overdose deaths I have seen would never. And then your wife had chimed in, just to kind of say she's interested in hearing the perspective on why these messages go viral. Same reason that a lot of things go viral. I think people want to see somebody that disagrees with a concept that has been around for so long, whatever that may be, right? They want to see the shootings and the blood and guts and the robberies and all these things because it sells, and that's simple. And that's we all know that. And
he talks about like how the media and how other people push this agenda, push the agenda that
I
can't think of the word, but just it
must have been all that weight loss.
Yeah, I lost some weight in the brain. But the sensationalism, but there's another word, and he again, to prove his point, he talks about the media and the public sensationalizing or dramatizing. That's the word, dramatizing addiction and like to the point of like, yeah, it's not true that people are addicted in the world and dying. You idiot.
My friend Dan just signed in and he asked, where are these questions coming from? So I know where to ask for next time. So they're in our comments and people are leaving them, Dan. And we're talking about this professor author that uses heroin recreationally and how we disagree with that. And, I hope Dan doesn't mind, but Dan's a phenomenal individual, guys. Dan suffered an overdose and lost his legs. And he's an incredible individual that is on Facebook daily, giving inspiration. He's a follower of mine. And, I just like to see Dan on here. So, Dan, welcome, man.
Yeah.
And if you got any questions.
should do a TED Talk. That's what the world needs, is a message like that and inspiration like that.
Yeah.
Not this guy. So anyway, yeah, enough about Lewis. What about me? So, yeah, my point, thank you, Ron.
Jim's losing his mind over here, guys.
Yeah. I had not enough carbs.
The fame of the 11 followers we got watching has gotten to his head.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, just to tie everything in, and I think
I'm answering Ron's question.
Oh, Ron asked the question?
Yeah. Well, you didn't ask, hey, Lewis, what was your turning point? He asked, hey guys, what's your turning point?
We skipped you.
Jesus.
Go.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah. So I think I mentioned it before. Like what led me to AA was an ultimatum from my mother, and I had a weekend binge. And I think the only difference was that I drank. Well, I'll give you a little perspective of the difference between a recreational or a person that is a social drinker versus someone that might have a problem. So I had been drinking up to that point, for about 10 years. And I had a wedding on Saturday night, and I would always go out on Friday night. And it just depended on what time I started, whether it was happy hour at 4:00 or a regular night. And what was always common was, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So here is the difference, or the distinction between how someone with an alcohol or an addictive mind thinks. So I know I'm going to this wedding on Saturday, and how I look at a wedding from an alcoholic perspective is the reception, putting money in the envelope, and I'm going to get my money's worth from the alcohol that I drink. So here's what I did is I stayed in Friday night and did not go out drinking because I wanted to be fresh for Saturday night. I wanted to be able to abuse myself to a whole other level because I didn't want to, because I've gone to, I've showed up to weddings and receptions hungover from the night before. So I do my usual thing of drink at the wedding Saturday night, and then I go back to the bar, and then I went downstairs with the owner of the bar and some other people, and we did a couple of lines, which I got into towards the end of my drinking. And what I found out, I didn't find out until I was sober, of the fact that I snorted heroin, not cocaine. And you want to talk about, and my body went into convulsions and shaking and different effects. Convulsions is not the right word, but so, and then Sunday softball, and did another 12-hour clip of drinking, and got into AA. So I was that miserable and that hungover that I was able to even consider the fact that my mother told me to go to AA. Then I'll fast forward in terms of a turning point or even a whatever moment. So fast forward 4 years later, I'm still sober, but I was not sober. I was working at this job trying to become rich and famous, and I lost my focus of AA being the most important thing in my life and staying sober. And I was miserable and disconnected from the program. And I was like, let me just, I'm going to drink. So I was working upstate, and I would come home on the weekends. I had a meeting list, an AA meeting list of Westchester meetings on my passenger chair, my passenger seat. And in my mind, I'm driving home and I'm going to go to a certain bar and just get it over with and drink. And this was like 3 weeks after my 4-year anniversary. And I never make it to the meeting. I get to my hometown, and I'm like, I haven't drank in 4 years. I haven't been around. And I didn't even have the nerve to like go right to the bar. So I stopped at 7-Eleven to get a beer, to just get myself started to be able to go to the bar. So I buy the beer with almost like tears in my eyes because I don't want to drink, but I'm just miserable. So I just want to put myself out of my own misery with the intention of going back to AA. I walk out of the 7-Eleven, and this is the old days, 1990. There was a payphone right in front of 7-Eleven. And I called my sponsor, told him I had a beer in my hand. And he says, well, I suggest you throw that out. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. He kept talking to me. I threw it out. I met him, ironically, at another 7-Eleven. Got a coffee instead. And I did not drink, and I haven't drank since. So that's also a message for anybody that's in recovery, is that's why you call a sponsor before you pick up, not after.
Pick up that phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful story. But I figured that the way that you gained all that weight is because now you give the envelope and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to get my worth in eating. He's going to get his worth in food. That's true. The wedding.
My wife at home is laughing because she's probably thinking about the blueberry and chocolate cake incident, but that was at a family function. But yes, I have a tendency to, I'm still, an addict. I can be in extremes. Now I'm extremely not eating carbs, and it's great.
So we had some new people. Dan had his mom sign in. My partner Joey just signed in. Joey, I love you, man.
Joey who?
Joey Cameron.
Joey Bag of Donuts?
Joey Bag of Donuts.
Yes, seriously, thanks everybody for coming and joining us and contributing and or listening. And even if you're not making comments. You're still contributing because you're here with us. So we appreciate it.
So, guys, I think we're going to conclude this. Again, this is Lewis and Jim with Recovery Media Podcast. We do a podcast. You guys can find it on Apple, on Spotify. We do an episode, comes out every week, and we're going to be doing a live every week. We want to try to incorporate some new things. We'll probably maybe do an episode where we ask some questions to somebody, whether they're in recovery, or a family member of somebody in recovery. So we want to try to get creative, and we want you guys to be sharing this and getting involved as much as you can on comments. And that is it. So with that, we love you guys. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.